Good evening. Hello, my friends. How are you? Hi, my name is Natasha. I am the creator and the founder of the Glow Up Method, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. Let me tell you, good evening. It is dark out, as you can see. It's a little bit later than I would like to be coming to you, but I'm still here. I'm still doing it. I'm putting in the reps. And, I've been thinking about you all day. It just hasn't worked out until now. So I've had a lot on my mind. A lot has gone on in these last 24 hours. I was really on this mission yesterday, really still living on the high of like this whole concept of freedom and, gaining my own personal independence and autonomy, and really just kind of relishing in that, because I always was just this extension of somebody else. Like I said, I was always, hi, I'm Bradley, Karina, Dylan, Tyler's mom. Hi, I'm George's daughter. Hi, I'm Chris's wife. Hi, I'm blah, blah, blah's friend. Like, I was always somebody's side piece. I was always somebody's, sidekick. And, I wasn't even really worthy of my own name and introducing myself that way. It was just this supporting act. And now I am in the part of my journey where I'm really becoming a main character in my life. And, yesterday was kind of a interesting day. I was doing all my stuff. I was doing my walk. I got my steps in. I spent time with the boys. I cooked I had never cooked a steak myself since I was young. I once went out and bought all the steaks and everything. And instead of marinating in red wine, I marinated, or not marinated, but the whatever the sauce that was going to go on it, I did it with red wine vinegar. And so, yeah, I destroyed the meat. It was so terrible, so tough, so terrible. It was just awful. But, so I have never cooked since then. So I just quickly cooked it yesterday. And, I made it for both the boys. Tyler didn't end up eating. He wasn't hungry, whatever, da, da, da. Anyways, long story short. So I don't even remember the rest of what I did. But I do remember this. At some point, Krista came downstairs, and Karina and Owen were in the kitchen, and I was in the living room just kind of doing my work and stuff. And he starts bad-mouthing me. And I was like, is he really doing this? He was like, yeah, I've had this headache all day, probably because I drink coffee all the time. But I don't want to come down. I'm hiding out from upstairs, staying away from who, and going on, and yeah, I wasn't even gonna eat because I didn't want to come down and see a person. And I was just like, is this guy for real? Number one, I'm sitting right here, and number two, you're having this conversation with your child. I was like, just don't say anything. Your daughter's already going through enough. I'm just gonna let it ride. Let it ride. And then I hear the pop of a soda. And I don't usually drink soda, but every once in a while, I get in this little kick where, there's certain meals that I want a soda or whatever. And so I'll put a couple in the fridge, and, of different kinds. And then if I take one, I replenish it. And so, I just asked him, hey, if you take one, because the day before I tried to go get one, there wasn't one. And I was like, damn it, I really wanted a cold drink, and there's none left. And so, when he took it, I was like, hey, I sent him a text, if you take one, can you please replenish it? And he's like, I text him this. And I'm like, I hear him, oh my effing God. He's at the table. He's like, get this now. Listen to this. Can you so kindly replace the soda after you do this? And I'm like, hey, are you reading, Karina, our personal messages? And he's like, yes, so what? And I was like, she doesn't want to hear this. And he was like, oh, she needs to know the truth about you. I'm like, she does know the truth about me. And he was like, oh, I just can't effing stand you. I either need to die or I need to move out. And I was just like, just sat there quietly. And he ends up getting up and stomping upstairs and was like, thanks guys to them for the food. And I'm like, why am I the bad guy? Because I asked you to replenish a drink? Because I sat here quietly as you talked crap about me to my child when I was an ear distance away. He's like, I'm tired of, I'm going to let everybody know how terrible you are. Okay, fine, do that. They either know I am or I'm not. I'm not any different to anybody else. So whatever. So he goes upstairs and I'm fuming. I'm like, I'm so frustrated. And he sends me a message saying I'm a terrible person. He can't stand being near me. Da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Fine. And so I was in the process of sending him an email and saying, this is not working. Like, these living arrangements are not working. Like, all weekend, he didn't want to contribute to anything around the house. The reason why he had left and for 4 or 5 days was because he didn't want to have to trim any bushes, and because he didn't want to clean up his computer shit that he left everywhere. Excuse my language. But yeah, like, I'm sorry, buddy. And so I, was like, okay, just let me know how much you're going to contribute to the kids every month. And he's like, well, I can't let you know that. I'll give what I can after I've paid for my rent, after I've paid for my bills, with the money I make. Then if there's anything left, I can give it to the kids. But you can go and do more. So principally, I've known all along. He's always been the same. This has been his answer, 23 years ago when he had an affair on me. Like, this was what his philosophy is. He hasn't changed, and I can't hate him for it. And I've prepared my whole life for that possibility of being like, hey, yep, these kids are your responsibility. Anything he does is a bonus. And, but it really stuck with me for some reason, this notion that I was terrible. I'm like, I am a terrible person because I asked you to be courteous and replenish something. Like, that makes me terrible. I am a terrible person because there isn't a magical fairy to come and clean up after you and do everything for you. Like, I am a terrible person because when you're hurting, I check in on you. I'm a terrible person because I ask you thousands of times when you've walked in the store, hi, how are you? How was your day? And literally, maybe in our entire marriage, have had that reciprocated 30 times. Maybe 30 times. I was sitting there thinking last night, like, never once in any crisis we've been through, like through heart surgeries, brain surgeries, my own personal, like, confrontation with possibly having non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, like, none of these things, with my aunt passing, my uncle passing, has he ever asked me. And I'm not saying it to be like dramatic or anything, but like, it's just not part of who he is. And I've accepted, like, to say, like, how are you? Like, I'm constantly asking, like, how are you? Are you okay? Like, I know this is going on. Like, I'm a support. How can I support you? Like, is there anything I could do? I could listen, blah, blah, blah. And he says, no, nothing, whatever. Or sometimes he will, say whatever he needs, or he'll say something, or say he doesn't know what he needs either. But like, I'm like, how does that make me a terrible person? Like, I just don't get it. Like, I tell my kids all the time, and he was like, my kids today, actually, during lunch, they were asking me seriously. They're like, okay, Mom, when you were overweight, did anybody ever call you like a fat B word? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, he's like, they're like, really? And I was like, yes, multiple people have called me that. And I was like, and yes, it didn't hurt me. They're like, but I hear it's like a cardinal sin, like, to call somebody a B word. I'm like, yes, do not call anybody that. But for me personally, if I'm being a B, I know how to be a B. I know what I'm doing. I'm not in delusional land here, in la la land, and being like, oh, I'm so sweet and nice when I'm being a B word. Like, sometimes I'm being, and I was fat. So yes, maybe it's not the nicest thing, but they're not lying. It was, yeah. Okay, I can't even be mad about it because it was factual. Like, if it wasn't true and I was like, this is not true. Like, I know I'm not a terrible person. I'm actually a terrific person. And so, it was this whole, like, concept for me today where I had to question myself, because when everything went down last night, he then decided to write the kids a text and let them know via text that their parents are no longer together and that he will be moving out. And I'm like, wow, just wow. Like, wow, this is all I could say to him is like, are you like, goddamn, like, this is how you thought the best thing to tell a 16-year-old was? Like, wow. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's not me. Like I literally sent a text like, hey, let's have a conversation with the kids. The next time everybody will be all together is on Sunday. Mind you, Pan, he's sending a text to the whole family in a group chat. I just don't get it. So after that, it was like a really like telling moment. And once he was saying that he's not going to contribute and that I can just take care of the kids and he'll do what he can, I was like, you are just like your father. And that was I felt terrible for saying it because I know he just found out his father had passed away, and I know they have this fractured relationship, but that's exactly what his dad did. And so I'm not justifying it because I, as a person, am like, I don't like that I said that, like that like conflicted with my integrity, even though it was true, because I just know that was probably very hurtful. So it didn't feel good. And when he, ends up coming down and being upset and leaving the house, I feel horrible, right? Like maybe he's right. Maybe I could have been nicer. And I'm trying to figure out within me what I could have changed and done better. Maybe I would have just if I would just refill all the sodas all the time, if I would just clean up his messes again for the next 25 years, if I would just, say that I love him so much and want to be in the room with him after all the years of him leaving and not caring the effect on me. Like, no, the only time he cared about not sleeping in this room was when I said, you can no longer sleep in this room. When he chose to not sleep in here for years on end, not a problem, not an issue. He loved it. He was happy. But the minute that I was like, yeah, no, you're not welcome back in here, now it's a problem. And now it's not even a problem between him and I. It's a public problem. You need to let all the kids know. You need to scream at me about it and how awful of a person I am because I won't share this room with you. I won't share a bed with you. No, I will not anymore. I was very clear. The next time you leave this bed without a conversation and say, hey, I need some alone time. I'm going to sleep. I don't care. Fine, have a conversation, but you don't just get to have a temper tantrum and pick up your stuff and leave after I specifically say, no, this is the last time. And then I went back on it and I said, no, really, this is the last time. And then I said it one more time. And then I was like, no, this is the last time. I am not a toy that you can just play with as you seem fit. Like, oh, okay, now I want to, now I'll come in. But now I don't want to, and I'll come in. And I don't care how it affects you or if it does or if it doesn't. Like, so I say all that to say, gosh, life is challenging sometimes. But I felt, I really had a tough time sleeping last night. I was thinking about it and thinking about a lot of things. And I was like really conflicted because, of course, it was like, my go-to, my default was like, it was my fault. Like I had done something wrong. And maybe I did. And I'm fact looking, like, is it true? Am I this? And I'm trying to debunk, like, no, I'm not. I'm not, like, literally, I'm not a bad person because I asked somebody to have courtesy. Like I would ask my kids, I would ask a stranger. Like that's just the way we move in this world is we have courtesy and we take something, like we have rules, like you take the last of something, write it on the list, or you take the last bottle, put it on the list so that somebody goes to get it and it's gone, they're aware. So it's been tough. And then, after, reading that text, I have to send the kids all a text. And one of my kids isn't even here. He's in Southern California. And so I send them all a group text, and then I have to go, in chronological order. I check in. My oldest one responds, it's probably for the best. I check in with the little one. He was okay. We hugged. We talked for a few minutes. My other one was busy, so he was streaming, so he couldn't talk to me. And then later that night, he usually isn't testy with me, and I don't know if it was hungry, if it was his frustration with his gameplay that day, or what was happening, or if that impacted his gameplay because now he was distracted and no longer thinking about his game. So he was kind of standoffish with me, but I gave him his space. I sat down there with him for a minute and I could tell he wasn't in the mood. So I just skedaddled. My daughter left. She didn't talk to me, nor did she ever respond, but everybody has their own right to process everything the way it is. And I was just like, after that, I was like, okay, it's not just as soon as you can. Like, I want a date of when you will leave. Like, this is not just when it's convenient for you and when it's not convenient for you anymore. Like, no, we need a date. So it was left at that, and I still haven't gotten a date. But, you know, so then this morning I'm taking down my blankets to wash my laundry in the morning, and we bump into each other in the garage. And usually I'm always the person, hi, good morning, like you know, always. I said nothing. He said nothing either. And so I put my stuff away, but it was so different this time. Like, for me, there was something yesterday that just was the finality. It was the straw in the coffin. That was it. That was it. And it was just like, it broke this tie that had connected us. Like, I wish him well when he was sad and left the house. Inside, I'm like, I hate as a human seeing another human hurting. And I can withdraw myself from the situation and feel very sorry for him. But I also have to feel very strong for myself and say, feeling sorry for him and supporting his, you know, depression, all his things that he doesn't want to work on or isn't capable of working on or is working on and it's just not moving. Like, I can't have it dictate my life anymore. I just can't. And it was suffocating me as well, because I was the punching bag. I was being punished. He was treating me the way he treats himself. And I don't like it. I'm not his mom. I'm not his dad. I'm not every person that ever harmed him. I was somebody who was very good to him and still remains to be. I go to the store, I buy something that only he specifically eats. Nobody in this house eats cherries, but I buy his cherries. I do all these things. I don't get a thank you. I don't get any appreciation or anything like that. I'm not asking for it, but I do it because I'm a terrific person. That even in a separation, even when you say hurtful things to me, say hurtful things about me to my kids, like, you want to continue to bash me and I will continue to rise above. And I do the one thing and say, you're like your father. And I feel like crap after, because I know that's not my integrity, but I'm just so angry that he would just not prioritize his kids, because I don't get it, because they are my top priority. And for him to just assume like, oh, well, you can just take care of them is just so messed up. Like, it just, like, principally, even if it was, he said, I can only give $100, then it's something, right? But the principle is, I'm going to take care of me. You can take care of the kids. And if there's anything left, then I will take care of them with the money I make. And it just is so, I don't understand it. So anyways, after having that validation once again, it just showed to me the lack of care for anybody beyond himself. Like, in my own perspective, he may have a whole different story. And so when he came home today, it was so different. I see his car come, and usually puts a pit in my stomach. I don't know who's coming in, what personality. I had nothing today. Like, it wasn't good. It wasn't bad. I simply didn't care. And he came in, and I had spent the whole day cooking. I made a lasagna and homemade garlic bread and salad and homemade cinnamon rolls. There was just something cathartic. I do not like cooking whatsoever, but just making a meal for my family and for myself, and just having this sense of accomplishment and, really following the directions and taking care. And it was honestly turned out to be the best lasagna I've ever made. And the cinnamon rolls smacked. The cream cheese frosting I made, I was literally just eating it just by the spoonful. It was so delicious. So, I definitely made everything with love today. And, he came in, and then he was doing some stuff around the kitchen, and I was sitting there eating, and then he whispered hi. And I didn't say anything. I had literally no words. And usually I'm always the one, hi, when somebody comes in, hey, how are you? How was your day? Always. I had said nothing. And literally that inner child in me was don't say anything. She was pissed. She was we're not ready to talk. And no words came out when he said it. And I sat there for a second. I was this isn't who I am though. Me sitting here and being like you, or being like somebody else and ignoring you, that's not who I am. So I said, hey, there's some lasagna. I just made that lasagna it was sitting on the stove cooling still. And I said, if you want some, you can have some. And he said, okay, thank you. So we left it at that. And then I cleaned up all around the kitchen. And then I said, are you going to have any of this? And he said, you can put it away. And so I said, okay. So I just put it away, and left it at that. And so it was really nice for me it was nice to see a changed demeanor, come in the house. But it's nice to know that I have my autonomy, that, my kids may not understand what I'm going through, may not like what we're going through, may not like the decision. Like I said in my message to them was, I love you guys. I'm so sorry that this is the delivery, how it was, told to you guys. My intention is to be friends with your dad and to be, the best co-parents we can be. And, hopefully we'll still be able to, my hope is to spend vacations and holidays and things like that together as a family. And, that's it. That's all I can say. And, I love you. I don't remember the exact thing. And Brad was in support, like I said, I've talked to Tyler. He's, processing. He's, I don't think any of this, it was super shocking. And I think some of them, may have known we were separated, because I think he probably must have told them. So, that's why I said this will come to a shock to some of you. So, but yeah, so I do feel this independence. I do feel this freedom. I do feel this sense of responsibility that, like, I do need to be the one to make sure the ship stays afloat. And I'll do everything I can to make that happen. You guys are going to be a big help in that. And yeah, it's really, really challenging, and it's difficult. But I did, on the plus side, he did this evening send me over a letter with an apology, and I appreciated that. And he did say, you aren't a terrible person, and it's not that I can't stand being around you, and went on to explain his own mental state and depression and grieving and his anxiety, and that he's having panic attacks, and that he's just so in love with me still. And, he just can't cope with the end of this relationship. And, he, is punishing himself, and he's acting irrationally, and he can't control his emotions and all those things. And, at the tail end, he said, you don't have to respond to this. And at this time, I'm not going to. Usually I always respond. I give him some kind of, pair off, and it's okay. But it wasn't okay. Like, it's not okay. I've asked multiple times to not talk about me to my kids. And, I work really hard to hold my tongue and not say things about Chris. And so I'm not perfect. I know I have said things, but like, I work really hard on dealing with the facts of the situation and not sit here and put in my opinions or my hatred. Or I don't have hatred, but like my, anger or sadness or whatever it is. Like, I work really hard at keeping that line of communication as healthy as I can in a very dysfunctional relationship. So I appreciated the apology. I did, but I'm not going to respond. I have nothing more to say. It was a very telling day. It was this final, like, lift of the restraints that have been shackling me. I have allowed his behavior, his mental state to rule over me in my life. And I've become anxious, anticipating what person's going to come in the door, and how do I respond, and anticipating and soothing his every qualm and wom and need. And, let me just do more of this, and let me do more of this, and let me have this ready for him, and let me do all this. And I'm not doing that anymore. If I want to be nice and buy the man cherries, I'll be nice and buy the man cherries. But I'm not going to be ruled by his irrational and volatile behavior. He's been in therapy for a very long time. And instead of working inside even when we were in the group therapy, all he wanted to do was blame me and say what I've done wrong, what I've done wrong. And I was sitting there and like, how do I be better? Like, I can't control Chris. And me sitting here and saying it's Chris's fault, we're not going to get anywhere because I can't control him. I can control me. I can change me. It's not always easy, but that's the only person I can control and change is myself. And so I say all that to say, we all are going through difficult things, right? Like, you know, I'm over here dealing with this. My kids are dealing with that. We have a friend who is in a pediatric ICU. And of course, I can't get the mother and the father and the son and the siblings and the whole family and friends and the community. I can't get it out of my mind. I mean, I can for moments. I'm not completely obsessed, but like my heart is so broken, you know, for them. And, you know, I'm driving my son to practice today and he's on a modified practice because he's still not fully cleared yet. And I'm thinking, dang, this kid should be going to practice too. This kid should be just living his carefree life. And, you know, he's over here having his third surgery in the matter of 2 weeks, you know, and so please keep him in your thoughts and prayers. And, it is just so tough. So we are all going through things. So I think if we be kind and know who we are, and yeah, it's easy to default. Like it's easy for me, and my old self would have quipped back with so many things about the terrible. I would have defended myself on why I wasn't terrible. And even today, like as I had to go to the store because we didn't have any garlic, and I saw something, and I was considering getting it for him, and I was like, nothing I do matters like to him. He sees me as a terrible person, and that's how he will see me. I could do everything in this world right, but that's how he wants to see me. That's how he chooses to see me. And that's okay. I can't control that. But what I can control is me. What I know for true, what I know for fact is I am not terrible. I am terrific. And I have to keep reminding myself because I'm someone who spent the majority of their life, you know, contorting and twisting and being a chameleon and trying to fit in with whatever group or whatever people I was and be accepted, and to tell that version of me that they were terrible. I mean, I would have believed it. I've been like, yes, oh my God, you are right. Like, how did I not know this? And oh, I already knew. You think I'm terrible? Let me tell you a few things you don't even know about me that are even more terrible than what you would have imagined. And I would have jumped on the bandwagon. And so today was evidence of the evolution of me, right? It is this place where I can hear something and I can see, like, is there validity to it? Like, only because if it is true, I don't want to be a terrible person. Like, my goal is to be a good, helpful, nice, kind, you know, sharing person. And so I had to do some reflecting, and when I could come up with 55,000 reasons why I was terrific and I not terrible, and I only picked that because they're similar in, you know, words and letters and length, and so I really had to think about that and remind myself throughout the day, like, a terrible person doesn't, you know, cook their family food all day. A terrible person doesn't clean up the house. A terrible person, and it wasn't that I did anything for any recognition, but it was just the stuff I do on my daily basis that I'm like, a terrible person doesn't do these things, you know? So like, and you know, a terrible person doesn't reach out and ask if you're okay and offer help. And, you know, so again, it's kind of a mind like game in here, and it's really like a, you know, we're in court and somebody says I'm terrible, and I'm like over here saying here's all the reasons why you're not. And so it is an evolution of me, and you don't have to take what somebody says about you as truth and fact. Like, know within your heart, your heart who you are. Like, I know who I am. I know what my intention is. I know what my integrity is. I may not always show my cards. I may not always play them all at once. Sometimes I like to hang back and play a long game. Like, I'm observing and I'm watching and I'm waiting for the perfect time. I don't need to reveal all my cards. I don't need you to accept and think I'm a great person. That ship has sailed. It has been clear. You had 25 years to do one job. The only thing I asked for in a marriage was to be kind to me. That was it. That was all. It was one thing. All the other stuff, I could turn a blind eye to, but I just needed somebody to be kind to me. And when he was beating me up, I was also beating me up. And I thought that's what I deserved. I thought that's what I was worthy of. But now my self-worth has grown immensely. And I know I am worthy of kindness. I treat myself with kindness. I treat others with kindness. And I expect others to treat me with kindness if they want to be a part of my life. If not, that's okay. You don't have to love me. You don't have to be kind to me. You're just not in my circle. So I say all that to say, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Anything you're going through is a challenge, right? And we get these choices in life about how we respond. And so always respond in a way that future you will appreciate the way you responded, instead of feeling like, oh, I shouldn't have said that or I shouldn't have done that. So really take your time to be calm. And I think that that's been one of the benefits of my walks, of my morning meditations. It has allowed me in my dysregulating showers, even though they're not that cold right now because it's so hot that the water is even hot. Like right when you turn, like even the coldest water is kind of hot. So I'm not getting as daily dose dysregulated, but it's still there. But even all these little practices have helped me immensely when I'm dealing in these highly intense situations that, and quite honestly, before when I was big, I would have been a fat bee, like straight up. I would have popped back off. I would have had a million comebacks. I would have screamed. I would have yelled. I would have, said whatever, cursed. I would have did it all. And I could just sit back and say nothing. And I could calmly say, please stop talking about me. Please stop sharing these, instead of the way I used to respond. And so that, my friends, is growth. And so I say all this to say, thank you so much for tuning in today. I don't even know if I'm crooked. This camera is still not working, this stand. I got to get working on this. But thank you for tuning in today. I'm so proud of you. I adore you. Thank you for listening and hanging in here with me. If you could do me one big favor, go out there today, give somebody a big smile, give them a compliment, and just watch how they glow up. So thank you. Bye.